Okay. Excellent. And you're here today to try to minarchist pill me, yes?
Well, at least at least open you to some new ideas, I suppose.
All right.
Well, we're supposed to have had a friendly chat, or at least that's what I understood was the intention. And pretty much instantly afterwards turned out to be a super aggressive debate. I didn't prep for one. I prepped for like introducing someone fresh to some different ideas. Hopefully, they would say, "Well, I don't agree, but this sounds interesting." But that didn't happen. Overall, I think I did about average. Some things I was able to answer from memory. Some things I don't usually discuss politics, and I wasn't really comfortable about issues of race. I usually just do economics and ethics. But um, anyone can walk away from that thinking, "Oh, the other side did well, or the other side didn't. Their side did well, or didn't do well." I would say he has this like super annoying habit of interrupting you mid sentence, but it's not like a short interruption, and then it's like 5 sentences of just fluff where he could have just said one sentence instead. Um, I thought that seemed odd. Um, yeah, the the issue I had towards the end of the debate, there was a sort of stalker that came from another Discord channel. Now, I had debated this person before on the topic of is Venezuela more socialist than Norway? And apparently, he was very upset at this debate, and he decided to go on Rose's Discord and say he's a liar, and then because he was using that tactic as well before in our debate, I think he's probably on the spectrum. And Rose, because he was taking the L on a few things, like, finally I'm vindicated. I don't have to debate this guy anymore. And like an idiot with great vitriol, just called me like, uh, to be honest, it did trigger me a bit. I guess that's my bad. I guess I need to deal with that a bit better. I don't know. I guess I just take honesty seriously. I don't know, but yeah, it's not good that I got triggered in a debate. I think that's something I should work on. But with regards to the issue of being called a liar on, I did want to have a talk about that. And basically, there is a study that says that the government is inefficient. Now, I'll bring the study up now. So, the study tries to draw a comparison between state welfare, public welfare, and private charities, and particularly in the area of efficiency. Now, charities do report and have incentive to report this to their patrons about how efficient the money that the patrons spend is used to the end goal of what the charity is supposed to do. So you can go to a charity and say, out of every dollar or out of every pound, how many cent or how many pence is not does not reach the target people or the target destination, and that's like a measure of efficiency of the charity. It's relatively common. It's been around since the 90s, I think. Now the government doesn't have this, nor does it seem to want to have this, and the study referenced another study. I wasn't aware, but the study referenced another study that indicated that the government and other things and other costs, sorry, reduce the amount of money that reaches the end person by 70%. Now, here is a diagram of what that person was talking about. He did reference another study. That means it was like a citation of a citation. The person from this study did use it in the context of a economist, sorry, in the sense that he also calculated like lost economic economic efficiencies, lost economic potential due to the collection of taxes in terms of how companies need to restructure and stuff like that, how they need to pay taxes, if they need to try to make it more efficiently, and the IRS that's collecting this. So that's like a sort of lost revenue where if that wasn't there, then there could have been more benefit to the economy. How much money was collected by tax and how much money the end recipient received. And it's very useful in a sense to measure these sorts of things. So the problem was that there was apparently a female Republican politician that used this study out of context, and I I didn't really know about it till recently. I guess it's an old article about her. Yeah, I wasn't aware that she had said these things, and she basically took this study out of context, and then as a result, it was fact checked and said, no, this is not true, and it's much more nuanced than what she's saying it is, and as a result, some people just took it that the whole study is debunked, not just the specific thing that she had said, and that was kind of what was conveyed to Rose by the stalker, and from their point of view, that's it. It's debunked. There's no need. But unfortunately, or fortunately, well, unfortunately, it's not debunked, and there is some truth to it. There is context to it. So I had to find the cited study, and I'm gonna present it here, unedited in a sense, and you can make your own conclusions about it.
Conditions in low-income neighborhoods have spiraled downward. While impoverished Americans may not be rising up, what has become a virtual poverty industry and the bureaucracy of welfare system has prospered, expanding to 89 separate programs spread across 14 government programs and agencies. In sum, 70% of anti-poverty funding has not reached the poor, but has been absorbed by those who serve the poor. As a consequence, the system has created a commodity out of the poor with perverse incentives to maintain people in poverty as dependents. The operative question became not which problems are solvable, but which ones are fundable.
Now, in addition to what's being said here, I also want to reference or advise you to go to someone else's video to read more about how the government is inefficient with money, how it wastes money. And in this context, it's the government and its suppliers. So the video will explain incentives to be efficient where the government lacks them, but it does have an incentive to do what's called pork barrel spending, and friend of a friend gets the contract to do a particular thing. So the video will go more into that, but in the full context, it's still not great. For the position. I've been asked to give some examples of some government programs. So there's one in the US, in LA specifically, by Mayor Garcetti. In 2016, he put forward a proposition called Prop HHH, which was an idea to help developers give a bond or like a fund to help developers build affordable houses faster. And the intention was that LA would then use those houses, would then buy those affordable houses to house homeless people. But specifically, the idea was for homeless people, but it was to increase the pipeline. The bond itself was 1.2 billion, was approved in 2016. The idea was to house 10,000 homeless people in apartments. But at some point, there were a lot of delays and additional costs to construction, and it turned out that the houses would cost around 550K each. In addition, there were a large amount of the costs were, or 40% of the costs were soft costs like permissions and meeting administrative regulatory burdens. The non-profit developers that were assigned, given access to this fund, had to take out 2.8 billion additional loans themselves. Of the 10,000 homes, 7,000, like 465, were built at some point or were in the process of being built. I think they were in the process of being built in 2020. But of those, only 5,764 were designated for homeless people. The rest would just be affordable housing that I would assume the non-profit developers are able to sell and make a bit of a profit. As of August 2020, only 652 homeless people have been homed, where at the time 41,000 homeless people were in the city. So as you can see, this is an example of, or a complex example to some degree, because I had to do a bit of research on this. I had to get my numbers straight for this. None of this money, or very little of this money, actually ended up helping the homeless directly. Very few. It's a long and complicated process, and we still haven't seen, I think, 5 years on, 6 years on, we still haven't seen too much of that. Moving on to another example from the UK. Now, this isn't exactly 100% with regards to efficiency, but it does have elements of it, but it is a bit of a rant on my side that I just wanted to talk about. So the NHS in the UK, National Health Service, it's a bit of a religion here in the UK. Both the left and the right cherish it. The left wing people have been saying that it's been underfunded for years, but since it has had its budget increase every year since 1979. Before the pandemic started, or as the pandemic was about starting, one hospital in London got overwhelmed with COVID patients, and 2 other hospitals in London got somewhat overwhelmed, and as a result, we shut down the whole economy and told everyone to stay at home. I.e., we're not protecting the people per se, we're making sure that people don't get infected at a fast enough rate to overwhelm the NHS. An example of this was returning elderly people who had COVID back to their nursing home, and the reason was, it's not really funny, but the reason was that they were taking up beds in the NHS, and the NHS wanted those beds back. And while all this was happening, just as a side note, everyone in the country stood on their doorway. So we were stuck at home. We opened the door at 6 p.m. every day, and we clapped for the NHS. And if you didn't do that, and we did it too, and if you didn't do that, then the neighbors would give you a funny look. But in general, like alongside the pandemic, or maybe a bit before, 4.7 million people are waiting for operations in England. There's a huge issue with the cancer crisis, because a lot of people were not able to see the doctors for cancer or be not treated, but discovered cancer during this time. About 124,000 patients are waiting 3 months or more for just tests. The cancer survival rate in the UK is now 50%, whereas it's 72% in the US. More and more people are going private. I know that companies now are offering as a perk private health, and it's useful to just have it, because if you want to see your GP or your family doctor, you have to wait between 14 and 21 days for a phone call. And with the private one, you get like an app, and like within 48 hours, you could have like a FaceTime or something with a doctor, a private doctor. And I know that even in the case of cancer, a lot of elderly people are choosing to pay private because it just takes forever with the NHS. And there's a big deal with doctor shortages. A lot of doctors are overworked and upset. They're either choosing to retire early or leaving to go back to their own country. So it's not great over here in that sense. But I think maybe people around the world already knew that. Yeah. And lastly, because you probably joined to see the clickbait, I'll leave the rest of the video to show what the clickbait was referring to. So just to see that it's 100% authentic.
alleviating part of that.
Yeah,
And
I guess one of the concessions that I want you to make
Mhm.
is that it would be better if nobody had gender dysphoria.
Oh yeah, 100%, absolutely. And
And
Mhm.
it would be better if people did not feel they needed sexual reassignment surgery uh, to alleviate pain
Mhm.
and misery and unhappiness. So if somebody wants to change genders because they just feel like it,
Mhm.
is a pretty extreme thing to do. And it would be better if we didn't have the problem that makes people want to do that in the first place.
Yeah, sure. And there's a wide range of different like